Spared. And so every year since, the Israelites have reenacted that night to remember and to celebrate God's justice and his mercy. But Pharaoh, because of his pride and rebellion, he loses his own son, and he's compelled to finally let the Israelites go free. And so the Israelite slaves make their exodus from Egypt. But no sooner do they leave than Pharaoh changes his mind, and he gathers his army and chases after the Israelites for a final showdown. As the Israelites pass through the waters of the sea safely, Pharaoh charges towards his own destruction. The Exodus story concludes with the first song of praise in the Bible. It's called the Song of the Shepherd. And God turns the tables on Pharaoh. Just as he killed the sons of the Israelites, so God will kill the firstborn in Egypt with a final plague. But unlike Pharaoh, God provides a means of escape through the blood of the Lamb. And here the story stops and introduces us in detail to the annual Israelite ritual of Passover. On the night before Israel left Egypt, they sacrificed a young, spotless lamb and painted.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are grateful to be back again for another Sunday School Live, aka Turning Point Teaching Time. I'm excited for this morning's lesson, and I pray that you all have had a good week. And we're about to get right into it and go into our lesson this week. So as you are getting everything ready on your end, getting your volume up, getting everything situated, this morning we are going to be discussing a very classic narrative regarding God providing water out of a rock. Okay, so while we get our text this morning, we'll pull it up here at the bottom of the screen, of course. And the first one we're going to go to is John chapter 4, verse 7 through 24 is where we're going to start this journey this morning. All right. All righty. So John chapter 4, verse 7 through 24. And I have it here for you. So it reads um as thus. Give me 1 second. Alrighty. So John chapter 4, verse 7 through 24. And basically what we're reading is there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, asketh drink of me, which I am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it was that saith to thee, give me to drink, that wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Then the woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence hast thou living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give thee, shall give him, shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Jesus saith unto her, Go, call thy husband, and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that saidest thou truly. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, we know that that's a very familiar passage of scripture, but it's an excellent segue into what it is that we're getting ready to discuss, because one of the things that we're going to discuss is, are you really being honest with God from his perspective? Okay. But before we dig into that, let's dig into Psalms chapter 95, verse 6 through 11. All right. Again, Psalms chapter 95, and we're going to go verse 6 through 11. All right. So boom, verse 6 through 11. Okay. And so it says, Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our maker, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, and the sheep of his hand. Today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your heart, as in the provocation, and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my work. 40 years long was I grieved with this generation, and said, It is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways, unto whom I swear in my wrath that they should not enter into the rest. Okay, now my rest, excuse me. So, now that we're looking at these different texts this morning, you'll see that there's a constant conversation that's being constantly being reflected on when it comes to that of worship. Okay, so now we're going to deal with the next passage here, which we're going to go to out of Numbers chapter 20. All right, again, we're going to come out of Numbers chapter 20, and we're going to read verses 1 through 11 regarding that. Okay, so let's see, 20, boom, 1 through 11. All right. Then came the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, into the desert of Zin in the first month, and the people abode in Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried. And there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And the people chode with Moses and spake, saying, Would God that that we would die when our brethren died before the Lord? And why have you brought up the congregation of the Lord into the wilderness, that we and our cattle shall die there. And wherefore have ye made us to come up out of Egypt to bring us into this evil place? It is no place of seed or of figs or of vines or of pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. And Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, take the rod and gather thou the assembly, thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water, and thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock, so thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. And Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded, and Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock, and he said unto them, hear now, ye rebels, must ye fetch you water out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beasts also. Now they leaving you on a cliffhanger there. We're gonna leave it there because that's where they stop for that particular narrative there. Now, what you have to understand is first of all, this narrative is very distinct because it is what I like to call the turning point, where Moses's anger basically gets the best of him. And during a time in a season of testing, what you will come to discover is a lot of people, when you don't know how to manage your anger effectively, when you're overwhelmed, and when you don't understand how to properly address what is going on in your life, you can often make choices and decisions in anger that ultimately work against you. Okay, so now we're going to go to our next related scripture, which is coming out of Exodus chapter 19. All right, and it's going from verse 1 through 6. Okay, so let's pull that one up. And of course, you know me, every week we give context. I love context. I love reading around the text because it helps us to see the text in a better light. Okay, so here we go. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai, for they were departed from Rephidim and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness. And there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob and tell the children of Israel, ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Now, therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou spake unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces in all these words which the Lord commanded him. Okay, now when we go back into they're wanting us to go to Exodus chapter 15. I personally feel like it would be better to go into Exodus chapter 17, which is where our main text is coming from. And we will go there right now. Now, if you have any questions, you can feel free to leave a comment, as our custom is that I like to address questions too. So don't hesitate when it comes to the questions, please. Now we're going to go to our main text, our main scripture. All right. And we're going to go to Exodus chapter 17. And we're going to start at verse 1. Okay. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Okay, now, where these people are right now is they are transitioning after doing a transition and coming out of a transition and going into another transition until they reach a place of basically, ultimately, they are going to come to a place of the promise. Okay, and so for many of us, we are going through rapid transitions. Many of us are dealing with transition after transition after transition. It might be financial transition. It might be relational transition. It might be that you change locations of the place in which you worship. It might be a transition from losing a loved one and now learning how to have to live without that loved one being present. And so now what you're experiencing and what it is that we're seeing is that the children of Israel are not really per se in a settled place. What what the difficulty of this text that's not per se being presented, even though it is slightly mentioned in verse 1, is the fact that the transitions that are transpiring are bringing them out of the place of bondage into a place of freedom, and now they're in the process in between. Okay, and when you're in a process in between bondage and freedom, what you're experiencing is you're experiencing this dichotomy. You're experiencing two different realities talking at the same time. You're experiencing a reality where you start to dwell on what was going good in the past and how can you get back to that place in order for you to feel a level of comfort. And then you're also your mind and your heart and your spirit is also having a conversation about God. Well, if you got me out here, what are you doing? Where do you have me? What's going on? Why do I feel the way in which I feel? And how do I address the circumstance from your perspective enough to where I can navigate through this process without losing everything, without losing my marbles, without losing my lunch, without having a headache at the end of the day? Because I know that you come through for me before, but I just can't see it for myself. And the hardest thing you ever have to deal with in life is when you have to depend on God and you can't see what He's doing. And you don't really know which way next is going to come, and you don't know what next is going to look like, and you know next is almost there, but you're not really sure what next is going to look like and how it's going to work out and how the plan is going to be structured and how it's going to be situated. All you know is that God is going to come through for you. And the scariest part about it is how often do we know what God did for us, but we forget in the midst of the trial and the test and the circumstance? How often do we need to be reminded about what God does and how He's done it before and how He can do it again and how He's the same God right now and how He's the same God back then? What is it about this particular experience when trouble and pressure and death surrounds us that we often soon forget what God has done? And this morning, I'm really just coming to remind you that God has already been here for you in situations that were actually worse, maybe even more crazy than the situations you're in right now. And if He has not, up to this point, this particular time and this particular story and this particular test is going to prove to you who God really is. Now, the difficulty about what I'm saying is oftentimes we are taught lessons and we are listening to sermons and we are listening to teachings that don't emphasize how to suffer well. They often emphasize the blessings of God, and they often emphasize all the things that God can and will do. But the reality for many is what do I do when what I want Him to do is not what He's doing? What do I do when God is not really pushing me in a way in which I want to be pushed, because I want to just fall out in the floor and I want to just quit and I want to just take my time and I want to just lay here and I don't really feel like being bothered and I don't want to go any further and I don't want to do nothing else? And He was like, listen, I didn't call you to stay stuck. I didn't call you to be stagnant. I didn't call you to be mediocre. I called you to become everything that I needed for you to do, but you have to keep walking. And it clearly states here, we walk by faith and not by sight. But the reality is if you stop walking right now, if you quit right now, you're going to end up in the place of testing and you're not going to reach the place of promise. And there is no point of taking a journey to stay in a place of testing. Many people who don't understand what the process looks like of stability comes through a multitude of transition. And everybody wants to have basically their cake and eat it too. You want to be able to sit there and sing Kumbaya and do a dance. But the reality is whether the transition, you could be on the same job for years, but your life is personally transitioning you in ways that will cause you to grow and to mature and to shift your thinking and to shift your focus and to shift your ideology and shift your understanding and shift the way in which you operate and the way in which you handle people and the way in which you deal with family and the way in which you maneuver all comes from transitioning. And if you understand what the formula is if you really want to be successful, then you have to learn how to transition more accurately and more quickly. Right? Because the sooner you can transition more accurately and more quickly, then the sooner you are able to reach your promise. The problem is we often get stuck with situations and circumstances that leave us feeling isolated and alone, and we feel stagnant. But the reality is you feel that way because you're making choices to not move any further. Now, when we go back into the text here, it says this, and all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of sin after their journeys according to the commandment of the Lord and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for them to drink. Now, the question is God, if you know the tendency of this people, why do you keep using different examples when you already know that they're going to complain? like I understand, God, that you love us enough to allow us to go through circumstances that you know can be difficult, but why, if you already know the tendencies of these people, do you continue to do this in this way? And what I learned was God, even though he's testing you with the same thing, he won't always use the same elements nor the same people. He'll use different circumstances. He'll use different names and different faces and different circumstances to help you learn how to navigate through circumstances to transition well, to transition accurately, and to transition quickly. And the ridiculous part about it is God is really and truly showing them that before I took care of you when you needed food, now you're in a place that you need water. What do you think I'm going to do? If I already took care of you when you needed meat and when you needed manna and when you needed all these different things before, am I not the same God who parted the waters to get you to where you are? And now you're worried about the fact that there's no water in this place. I'm the same God who was there, who helped you to get through and deal with all the difficulty and the bondage and the circumstance and the enemy trying to kill you and to destroy you and to bring you into a place of captivity and to keep you there. And you're still questioning me about water in a new place. Last time I brought you into a place, you were brought into a place where it looked desolate and it looked dry and there wasn't no food and there wasn't a lot of vegetation and it wasn't anything that was going to sustain you. So you thought, but the reality is I brought you to a place. And now this time it's not the water and it's not the quail, and I mean it's not the manna and it's not the quail. Now it's the water, and so the tension here for me personally is God. Okay, well, you already showed me that you will take care of what I need to sustain me from in one area, but this is another area. And if my expectation is supposed to be the same from the old place, but I have a new problem, then how is my expectation that you're still going to come through for me, because the issue looks different than the last time? And so now I have to deal with the difficulty of something looking new, even though I'm supposed to abide by the same principle that you taught me before. And the scariest part about it is this is really how the enemy tries to prevail against the people of God. What do you mean, sir? What I mean by this is God will have you in the same season of testing, but he'll have new objects and new problems and new circumstances and new situations. But it seems and appears that God is basically making you go through something else. And you like, look, I'm already tired. I'm already irritated. I don't want to have to go through nothing else. I'm already trying to figure out enough. I'm already stressed. I'm already losing sleep. I could barely eat. God, like, I need you to help me. I need you to help me to figure out how to navigate through this circumstance and this situation. And he's like, look, I got something new for you to do, but I'm going to use the same principle of trust and testing in order for me to prove to you who it is that I am. And what if I told you that the same God who helped you to get the water and to get the manna and to get the quail is the one who is going to now bring water forth to you in a dry, in a desolate, in a place where water was not readily available. How do you know that? Because if that water had to come out of a rock, it means that there was no water present for you to just be able to go up to. It means that the miracle God had to perform had to come out of something that you assume could not do anything. And so, I'm getting excited already. It's the rock in the land. It's the rock in the land that is holding something that you may not be aware of. But what God has for you in this season is something that's already around you that is going to bless you in a way that you never expected. He's going to surprise you. He's going to bring about a blessing. He's going to bring about a change, and he's going to bring it out of an element that you least expect for it to come from. And let's just deal with it real quick. Let's go to verse 2. In our narrative this morning, it says what? Wherefore people did chide with Moses and give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? Okay, now we got to go back because now we got another problem. What is the other problem? The other problem is now the children of Israel are doing the same thing that they did with the old problem, except this time they already have an understanding that God is the one that is leading Moses. And because they have an understanding that God is the one that's leading Moses, every time they're complaining against Moses, they are really complaining against God. And so when Moses responds, what does he say? He literally says, wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? In other words, why is it that you're coming to me with these issues? Why are you coming to me with these problems? Like you're coming to me with the situation as if you don't know what God is already going to do. You're coming to me as if I cannot see as the leader that there is already an issue. And what you must trust and know is that I have instructions from the Father that you may not be able to hear and you may not be able to ascertain on your own, but I am going to bring the answer to you shortly. But the problem is the term chide has a different connotation than that of murmuring. Last week we dealt with murmuring. What is murmuring? Murmuring literally means to build a lodge or to build a space, like to build a house where I'm going to dwell there. And I'm going to dwell there based on my conversation and what it is that I have to say. And mind you, murmuring is never a good thing. Every time you look up the word murmuring, it is never used in a positive light in no narrative biblically. And so what you have to understand is murmuring is not something people should be doing. What we should be doing is magnifying instead, because when you learn how to magnify God over the circumstance you're in, what you do is you basically highlight the goodness of the Father over the vastness of the problem and the perplexity in which you're dealing with. But because people choose to murmur instead of magnify God, what happens is they ultimately end up magnifying the problem as if God does not have a remedy for your issue already. And because he already knows where you're going, he knows where to place the miracles in your life so that you will have exactly what you need at the moment in which you need it, because his timing is not our timing. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are so high above our ways and our thinking and our ideology and our traditions and our understanding that God has enough wherewithal to put you in the right place to show you what he is capable of in your proving season. And so when we get back to this text, we're looking at it and it says, wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, give us water that we may drink. Now, the thing is when you talk about the term chide is a term where it's a little more vast than murmuring. Murmuring is like level 1. Chide is on like level 3. What does that mean? It almost insinuates that they almost came at him in a legalistic manner. They almost came at him with a sense of entitlement, as if they were owed and they were due this water. They came at him like, look, we out here in the middle of the desert. You owe us this. You owe us the ability to be able to come in and give us what we're asking for. Why? Because we've already journeyed here and you done already dragged us out here against our will, and you done already brought us here to a place that we didn't really care to be. And so because we are angry at the fact of what you've done, even though what you're doing is bringing us into a place of freedom, we can't see freedom right now. All we can see surrounding us is the problems that we're dealing with. And listen, there are many people that all they can see is their problems, their circumstance, and their situation. They cannot see a way out. They don't hear God right now. They don't have a remedy or a solution. And now they're turning to Moses and they're like, look, you're going to have to fix this problem because we in a place that we didn't put ourselves in. And so you're going to have to get it done. And Moses is like, look, ain't no point in you getting mad with me. Don't tempt God because you're angry with me, because I'm following him. I'm not even following my own accord. I'm not doing anything because listen, if it was up to me, I would still be on the backside of the mountain at my daddy's house. At Jethro's house, my father-in-law's house, chilling like a villain. You wouldn't even seen me. You wouldn't have known where it was that I was because I was in a place of hiding. But when God brought me out of hiding to bring you to a place of freedom. Now you're wanting to argue with me, and the miracles that you need are hidden in plain sight. You don't even see what God is trying to do, but what he's getting ready to do is about to be unveiled. And what he's getting ready to do is about to be seen. And what he's getting ready to do is about to be made known. And what it is that he's getting ready to do is going to put you in a position to where what you're complaining about, he already has a remedy for. But I promise you that God is going to come through and he's going to help you, but you have to be what? Patient. And the problem with being patient in the midst of a problem and a trial and a test is you want to hurry it up. You want to get from under the pressure of the problem, but you can't, because patience, the trying of your faith, worketh patience. If your faith is never tried, then you never become patient and you never understand how to handle pressure properly. And if you don't understand how to handle pressure properly up under the wings and the strength of patience, then you won't understand how to fully trust God in the times of difficulty. And so now when we go to verse 3, let's look at verse 3, y'all. Verse 3 is literally saying, and the people thirsted there for water. Okay, and now look, guess what they're doing? And the people murmured against Moses and said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? Okay, now if you remember last week, what was they complaining about? They were literally complaining about, you came out here to allow us to die from what? Hunger. This week is you brought us out here to die, and it's from thirst. Now listen, why is it that every time that God puts you in a new place, you think he's trying to kill you? God is not trying to kill you. God is trying to bring you into a place where you are willing to push through the problems and handle the pressure. He's trying to build up your ability to handle the pressure, to trust him with the elements of life before you have to deal with the enemies of life. Listen, if you didn't hear what I just said, I'm going to say it again. God is building you so that you will be able to understand that he will come through with the elements of life before you arrive at the enemies of life. And the enemy that was trying to kill you before, God took care of. But when you get to the promised land, you're going to have enemies that are in your destined place that you're going to have to fight. So if you don't understand how to deal with the elements and trusting God with the elements of life, how will you really be able to deal with the enemies and following the instructions that will need to be necessary to execute when the enemy is going to be way more complicated than you being thirsty and hungry? And the reality is you was hungry last week, you thirsty this week, and you was mad both times, and God came through for you still. So is anger really the remedy? Is anger really the solution? Is anger really going to help you to solve the problem? Because no matter how angry you are, every time you get angry, what do? You tend to go back into what God delivered you out of. What God was trying to get out of you is what you ended up falling back into, because you don't understand the testing and the prodding of God in this season. And if you don't understand the test and the trial and the circumstance and the situation, you're going to end up having to retake the test. And there's no point in you having to retake the test because you had the answer all along. Matter of fact, somebody else was helping you to deal with the answer so that you didn't even have to put in no work to get it done, and you still complaining. And so God is going to help us in this season to teach us, to help us, and to cause us to examine our hearts and examine our minds, because we have to deal with the fact that God is going to help us through these circumstances and situations so that we can be better, so that we can understand how to manage the elements before we have to fight the enemies. Okay, now, when we go back into verse 3, I have to show you something else. It says, wherefore is it that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? Now, listen, you starting to trip out where it is that you're now worried about the sustainability of not only you, but now you trying to drag in the kids. Now you're trying to drag in the livestock. You're trying to drag in anything that basically would cause you to lose your wealth. And now you're going to lose your legacy. And now you done brought us out here to all die. And it's like, look, I didn't bring nobody out here. First of all, God brought us all out here together, because I just told y'all I was already somewhere else, and God brought me here to bring you into a place of freedom so that he could win souls to him. And because he was able to win souls to him, we are now able to journey towards the promise. And so now let's go to verse 4. Here we go. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. Okay, now Moses is being honest in the moment. And this is an honest conversation about leaders. The reality is God knows, he sees, and he understands what it is that you are going through as a leader in this hour. And the difficulty is while many people and many leaders are smiling in front of people, they're in the back rooms, in their prayer rooms, in their prayer closets, trying to figure out the remedy and trying to figure out the solution to, God, how do we get through this problem and this situation? We are trying to figure out how to solve the issues of the pandemic. We're trying to figure out how to solve the issues of what do we actually do? Do we feed the homeless? What do we do? How do we navigate through this? Do we do COVID testing, and who do we partner with, and how do we handle this? And do we open our churches back? And do we keep the doors locked? And do we keep the saints and the sanctuary open? And do we take appointments that have to do with ministry outside of the four walls? Because while it is that we have opportunities to do ministry, is it really safe for us to do so? And the precautionary measures of how do we navigate through this circumstance and this season of trying to figure out answers where the rules are constantly changing. We're constantly dealing with transition. Last time you did this for us, but this time we need something else. And God, right now, how do we navigate through this circumstance and this situation? God, these people are literally ready to get rid of me because they feel like getting rid of me will solve the problem. But the reality is it's not getting rid of me that's going to solve their problem. It's have they come to the grips and understanding that you are real and that you are a provider. And the problem is whenever you get into a place where you're not sure where provision is going to come from, you start questioning everything. Matter of fact, you want to start killing everything. You like, look, move. I'm irritated. I don't have what I need financially. I don't have what I need to sustain myself. And I feel like I'm getting ready to just leave up out of here. I'm getting ready to just, I mean, it's like, God, you led me to this desolate place. How am I going to continue to further my life when it is that I'm trying to figure out what to do? And the reality is God is like, I'm here and I sent instruction through the person in which I called to lead you, but you have to trust them just as much as you trust me. And the difficulty is how do I trust you, God, if I'm not really sure what you're getting ready to do? Because I got a new problem, but you want me to use these old principles. And the problem is we're looking for new answers, but the remedies that we have are all ancient. This text, this Bible, this example of what it is that we're coming out of is literally helping us to understand that while you might have new problems, you got ancient remedies and you got ancient technology that is going to help you, aka prayer, aka worship, aka adoration, aka magnifying the Lord in the midst of difficulty and circumstances that don't line up with the will of God. You have remedies and solutions that are there right in your plain sight, but you have to be willing enough to wait on me so that I can open it up so that the revelation that is coming out of the rock will be able to help you to understand that I am with you. And so when we go to verse 5 now, let's go to verse 5. I'm getting excited. And the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people and take with thee of the elders of Israel and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand and go. Okay, now here it is. When we really deal with it, it's the rod of God, right, that is going to help the rock be opened. And I need to highlight something about this. It is because the conversation I was just having with you all, I was getting ready to post on Facebook the other day, and for some reason, as of late, if I'm getting ready to post certain things, he'll be like, hold on, don't use it yet. Wait and use it during this time. And so what he explained to me was this. You remember when God or when Jesus told the disciples, go to the other side, right? Okay, now go to the other side and I'm going to meet y'all over there in Matthew, right? In Mark and in John. That's where this particular narrative is in the New Testament, right? And so while he's going to the mountain, Jesus is going up into the mountain, into the rock, right? And he comes out on the water. Now, hear me clearly. When he comes out on the water, what transpires? Well, what happens is they're basically looking and they're trying to figure out who is this on this water. It looks like a spirit. I don't think that's Jesus because I've never seen him look this way in this manner, in this circumstance. And it looks so crazy and it looks so ridiculous. So God, help me to if this is really you, bid me to come. And so he's like, all right, come. Like, right? Like, come on. If you want to come out here where I am, feel free. Now, the thing was in the process of obedience, right? In the process of obedience, what you see and what you understand is that God, while Peter is getting out of the boat to step onto the water to come to where Jesus is, he ends up getting distracted. And because he gets distracted, he ends up going into a place where what? He ends up seemingly getting ready to drown. But what's interesting is it says that he falls short of where Jesus was, and it basically insinuates before he was able or had the ability to drown, that Jesus was basically reaching out his arm to save him. Now, while the connotation is of such, what I was getting ready to post the other day was this: no matter how deep or difficult the steps may be, God will not let you drown. Now that doesn't mean a whole lot of anything until you feel like you are drowning in your circumstance and you obey God and you still fell short. And what do you do when the process of obedience has you feeling like you're in a desolate place? I'm trying to help you understand. You're not going to drown. God will not let you drown in you overthinking and being overzealous and being over infatuated with the circumstances and the difficulty of life. He will not allow you to drown. He won't allow you to be in a place to where you will not be able to sustain yourself. He won't allow you to be in a place where you will not be able to maintain what he's called you to maintain, even in a season of difficulty. God will not allow you to drown. And so stop being dismayed and stop being distressed as if God is going to leave you hanging when he gave you instruction to do what it is that he's calling you to do. If God gave you the instructions, he's not going to let you look like a fool. Now, you might feel foolish in the process, but in testing, you have to understand that when your faith is being tried, sometimes it is humiliating what is being done. But the aspect of humiliation in which you are going through is really for other people to be able to see that you can still maintain a godly position even in a humiliating situation. And so God, yes, absolutely, God will not let you drown. God will not allow you to remain in a place that is going to bring demise when he called you to make the action anyway. And so while we're looking at verse 5, it says, and the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people and take with thee of the elders of Israel and thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand and go. And so the reality is this: if you're not careful, right? And let's talk about it really quickly. If you're not careful, the reason you would drown, right? The reason you drown, let's talk about it, is when you allow the same thing that's supposed to be holding you up and the same thing that's supposed to be positioning you to remain on top, if you let it consume you, you will end up making choices and decisions that will ultimately go at your demise. What do I mean? Moses, if let's just say this hypothetically, let's just play in this mind frame of talking about Moses as a boat. If Moses is a ship, right? If Moses is a ship, what transpires if Moses remains with no holes? What happens is Moses is now put in a position and a place to where what's supposed to be underneath him remains there, aka the water. Now, if Moses allows holes to transpire in his boat, if he has emotional holes or spiritual holes, or if he allows these gaps to be put into his composition, literally, then what will transpire is the same thing that's supposed to be a help to him becomes a hindrance to him. And how often do we not realize and do we not assess the distinction between a help and a hindrance? What happens is when you become consumed with something that's supposed to be helping you, and you become consumed with looking at it from a vantage point that is not really there for that reason, and you become overwhelmed with pressure and difficulty and strife and drama and all these other things, what transpires is you allow all of these things to come into you, and now because you can't get it out fast enough, you end up drowning in your own decisions. But God will not allow you to drown. So if you drown, who allowed it to transpire? The answer will be you. And the difficulty about what I'm talking about is Moses is now in a position and a place to where he has to now try to get all the anger that's inside of him, all the things that is going on around him, the fact that the people are constantly doubting him and they're constantly questioning him and they're constantly causing him to question if he was really even supposed to be doing this or not. And now he's allowing his thoughts to drown him and to consume him, because the very people who he has come to help has considered him to be the hindrance. And how often do we fall into the same thing, where when it becomes difficult for the people that God, listen, there are some times where you're pushing away your help because you're not recognized, or you're unwilling to be healed. And when you're unwilling to be healed, your help cannot help you, because you will count your help as a hindrance. Whenever you are not healed, you will count your help as a hindrance. Now, when when you get into that place and in that position as a leader, you will use the same instruments that God is calling you to use in order for people to be blessed with and for people to experience miracles with, and you will mismanage those elements in order for you to display your anger. And now the same thing that was supposed to be bringing you joy and peace and comfort is now the same thing that is now feeling like it's bringing you agony and distress, and you're literally about to die from something that God sent to help you, because you're not healed. And until you heal from your past, you're going to have a hard time recognizing real help, because real help will not sound like something that is going to leave you stuck. Real help is going to be in a place and in a position to where God is going to push you further, and he's going to help you, and he's going to bless you to be in a place and a position to bring him glory and honor. And so now when we look at verse 6, let's look at verse 6. Verse 6 is saying this: behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And verse 7, and he called the name of the place Massa and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Now, listen, verse 6 is saying this. If you let's pull it back up really quickly. Hold on. Oh, where we go. Boom. Okay. Behold, I will stand before thee there up on the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, and that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Now, let's talk about it real quick. When you look at what's happening, what you're seeing is Moses is giving instruction, right, from God, in order for the people to be blessed and to be helped. And so what you have to understand is just because you are receiving a miracle from God, right? Let's deal with this. Just because you're receiving a miracle from God does not mean that the method of the miracle was actually accurate. And sometimes the mismanagement of the method of you receiving the miracle, even though you received it on your end, the person who knew better and the person who received the instruction to do it better ends up getting in trouble because of their inability to maintain what God said, even in the midst of crazy pressure. And what do I mean by that? You can be blessed and be a blessing to other people, but got what the miracle would be by the wrong means. And by doing so, you end up hindering yourself, and you end up hurting yourself, where it would be actually to your advantage to follow God's instructions wholeheartedly. The problem is when you're drowning internally and nobody can see it. When you're drowning mentally and nobody can see it, right? Like when you really want to look at it from the perspective of, if you really want to talk about how it works, the situation is looking like this. No matter what is being said, and no matter what God is explaining to you, all you can hear is what is hurting you. And even when God is trying to help you, all you can hear in your heart, in your mind, and in your spirit is something is hurting me. And all I can hear from these people and from these individuals is hurt. All I can hear and all it is that I'm experiencing from these people and these individuals is hurt. And because I'm experiencing this hurt, all I hear is hurt. And until I am healed, all I will hear is hurt. So no matter what that individual says to me, because of my inability to come out of a place of hurt, all I will hear is hurt. All I will hear is pain. All I will see is the trauma. All I will see in other people is the examples of what somebody else did to me, when in reality, they haven't done anything to me in the same way, but it reminds me of the trauma. And so because I don't want to really heal yet, and because I'm not really ready to deal with my own personal issues right now, I will much rather just be in an isolated place and do what God is telling me to do, to perform miracles and task assignments and perform the wonders in which he's called me to do. But I'm going to do them in my own way. And because I'm going to do them in my own way, I'm going to end up hurting myself, and I'm going to end up damaging myself because of my inability to follow his instructions fully. Listen, come out of the hurt place in this season. Come into the place of healing, so that no matter what is being stated to you, that nobody will be able to talk through the holes of the hurt in order for your internal situation to be in a place of drowning. Right. And when you come out of a place where you are drowning mentally, that is often handled and managed through the aspect of, I am no longer hurting. Listen, when you're hurting, there are holes that the enemy is pushing his hand through and pushing his thoughts through, and sending his imps to continue to rip apart and to keep open, because he's trying to put places and spaces into you to where you will drown mentally from the trauma and from the pain and from the agony and the disappointment and the despair and the depression and the anxiety and all these different things. He's trying to use these holes, these advantages, these gaps against you, so that you will not be able to come into a full place of healing. And the sooner you come into a place of healing, the sooner you will be able to manage and to maintain the promise of God, because he's trying to teach you how to handle the elements of life before you have to deal with the next level of enemies in your life. Okay, now let's go to verse 7, and let's go to verse 7. It says what? It says then, it says, and he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel. Now, hold on, pause. The reality is, listen, the enemy will use it to destroy. I'm telling you, he listen, when you talk about certain aspects of mental health, listen, when you're dealing with certain aspects of how to maintain your sanity in a crazy time, listen, you have to either get the help, right, from someone who has the understanding of how to manage the psychological aspects of what you're dealing with from a greater perspective than what you can see. You have to have somebody outside of what you're dealing with in order for them to help you in what you're dealing with, so that you can get free from the inside out. I'll say it again. You need somebody outside, right, to see what's going on the inside, so that you can get free from what's trying to harm you internally. And as soon as you do it, and as soon as you're willing to get out of your own way, you have the ability to come into an agreement with what God is trying to do, so that you can be all that he's called you to be. But the difficulty is when you're not healed, you will even name things from a hurt place, and you will call people and their actions as to what they're doing from a hurt place. Listen, and I'll even show you what the name of this means, just so you can see how crazy Moses Moses was really not in a place where he was like, look, I'm not fooling with y'all. You guys have done me wrong. Y'all talking about me bad. Every time I'm trying to get something accomplished for the will of God, you all are basically coming against me. And so how am I supposed to continue serving when it is that you're coming against me in every way? And there are some people in leadership who feel like the people of God are constantly coming against them, no matter what it is they're trying to do, no matter what it is they're trying to present. They have an understanding that God is literally it's almost like they're being chastised for being obedient. Now, okay, now listen, let's look at this real quick. I'm gonna pull it up for you guys. Hold on one second. Okay, now look at this. The word Messiah. Let's look at it. Boom. Or as they like to say in the Hebrew, Makkah, right? Messiah or Makkah, right, is the name temptation. Now, it's the place in the wilderness where the Israelites tested who? Jehovah. Okay, now let's be clear about something. When you look at what that name literally means, it literally means that God is allowing Moses to name this place where the children tempted the one who was trying to provide for them. And what's crazy is you're going to test the hand of God because you don't understand his heart. And anytime somebody is testing your ability to provide, it's because they don't understand your heart. And oftentimes the place of provision that is needing to be tested, right, is in a place of high pressure and desolation, where you need something and the person you have an expectation of giving it to you, it seems as if they're not able to. And because you don't know their heart, because you don't know them well enough, you will assume that they really don't have the ability or the propensity to cause provision to take place for what you're requesting. And when you look at your help as a hindrance, you will start to blame the person who is coming to help you, and you will start to look at them through the lens of hindrance. And now you try to take situations into what? Your own hands. But the problem with taking a situation into your own hand is if you don't have the clearance to know that the water is going to come out of the rock, you're going to look for water in the wrong place. And there are many people who are taking these situations into their own hands, and they're now looking for water in the wrong place. And because they're looking for water in the wrong place, you're spending your energy and you're spinning your wheels in a place, in a space, and in a territory where it was not designed for you to be doing anything except following the instructions of the master. And so because you can't follow his instructions, you have to end up going back through the same circumstance and the same situation and the same testings until you learn how to relinquish control. And once you learn how to relinquish control, you will now be able to be pushed into a place of the provision of the Father. Okay, now let's go back and let's look at what it is that this other word means, because he named it two different things. Okay, now let's go back. Let's see, verse 7. Cool. Meribah, okay, or Meribah. All right. Now we're going to look at where it is. It means what? Strife or contention. Okay, now what is this? A fountain of Rephidim, or at Rephidim in the desert of sin, so called because the Israelites murmured against God. Now, it's called what? Strife and contention. Now, if you put the two of these together, if you put the two of these together, what it literally means is it is the contention and the bickering and the arguing and the fighting mentally that causes your words to literally be put in a place to where you will not receive what God is trying to allow you to receive based on your mouth. And listen, you you have to understand that it is so critical right now that you guard your mouth, that you guard your words, that you guard your understanding of what God is doing, and that you speak his words about these circumstances that you're dealing with from his perspective, so that you won't say the wrong thing to make you have to start the process back over. These tests and these trials and these circumstances have everything to do with what it is you're doing with your hands, what it is you're doing with your feet, and how well it is that you're guarding your mouth. Because when you guard your mouth, what you're doing is you're replacing your own language, your own feelings, and your own understanding with the understanding of God. And when you do so, what you do is no matter what the situation looks like, and no matter how difficult the testing may be, God will help you through the circumstance so that you can be everything that he called you to be. Okay, now let's go back to this really quickly. And I'll show you. See, look, it says strife and or contention. A fountain at Rephidim in the desert of sin, so called because the Israelites murmured against God. Listen, you are in a place, and based on your actions will determine what it will be called. And because it will be called a certain thing, it'll be done, and it'll be remembered because of what you did. Now, listen, the reality is what will you be remembered by, or what will you be remembered doing when it is that you are being called to pass the test from God? Will you be remembered for acting crazy? Will you be remembered for, pulling a fool? Or will you be remembered for following his instructions? Why? Because everything that you would do during this time will be named according to your actions. And it'll be marked in history and in the sands of time based on your response to what God is telling you to do. And when it is that God is telling you to do something and you're being pushed to a position to follow his instructions, because you're following his instructions well, what you will end up experiencing is what will you be remembered as when it came time for your response to deal with the access of what God told you to do? Will you hit the rock, right? Or will you follow the instructions of God so that you won't lose out on the promise? Because listen, as great as Moses was, you can't, it's hard to deal with Moses after this point, because this is the point where it shifts his whole narrative. Where Moses, and it's crazy to me because when you look at the stories of in biblical narratives, what you will see is people will obey up to a point, even leaders. And when they get to a point to where they're tired, to where they're fed up, to where, what's up, Bishop Garnett? God bless you. That's my bro. When you get to a place to where you're tired and to where you're frustrated and to where you're irritated, you will often be willing to manipulate the method as to which God was telling you to do, even though you're still able to perform miracles. And so the difficulty about what is transpiring at this point in verse 7 is you have to put yourself in a position to where being mad won't change your method. Listen, if you stop being angry with what is going on around you and you stop allowing the things to try to drown you from the inside, then you won't listen to the tonings and the groanings and the utterings and the frustration and the silence and the irritation and all these things that are bubbling up in your spirit, man. You will learn how to operate from a healed place, and you will learn how to operate from a place in which you must reside from a place of freedom. And when you are healed, you hear differently. When you are healed, you operate differently. And no matter what anybody is trying to throw off on you or trying to tell you that should stay within you, the reality is you are being pushed into a place where God will bring you through. And because he will bring you through, following his instructions will determine what you will be remembered by. This place is remembered and named by Moses, who is personally in a bitter place, who is personally in a place where he's operating out of anger. And because he's operating out of anger, he's naming the place out of what the people of God are doing, because the people of God don't have the same understanding that he does. And listen, you have to be careful not to blame other people as if they have the same level of insight, revelation, knowledge, wisdom, words of wisdom, word of knowledge, all the gifts and operation of the Spirit, because a lot of times people don't even have the same level of discernment that you have to know, to hear, and to see what it is that God is really doing. And because everybody has an opinion, and because everybody's word is drowning out the word of the one with the word, then the reality is whenever you allow for that to be the case, you will often end up being consumed. So what I'm trying to encourage you to do this morning is do not be consumed with the opinions of man over the opinions of God, because this is where it is that you will end up drowning in. If you become too consumed with the opinions of men and you don't take on the opinion of God in a time of testing, you will become consumed and you will become overwhelmed with the opinions of other people, not understanding that these opinions are really helping to strengthen your heart so you can learn how to lean and how to depend on not your own understanding, but the understanding of the Father. And so when you get to your place of where you understand the Father, then you will be able to be put in a position and you will be able to be helped, and you will not be hindered by the thing that is coming to actually help you. And sometimes what God will send to help you is people that will irritate you. And so what you have to do is get off of your high horse. Is what you have to do is discern and to ask God, why am I going through this experience? And I do it all the time, every single day. God, what are you trying to teach me? God, what are you trying to show me? God, what am I misunderstanding? God, what do I need to change about me? What are you trying to grow up and mature in me so that I can be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday? I'm trying to learn how to die to my personal preferences so that I can pick up your presence in those areas, so you can teach me how to manage and to maintain effectively, so that I can be a blessing to the people and so that the people can be helped in the time of testing. And so as an example, while Moses thinks he is doing this to fool the people, of course, as we say all the time, God sees and God knows. Well, because God sees and God knows, no matter what you say to everybody else, God is already aware of what you're doing. And because he's aware of what you're doing, you will either have reward or consequence for your response. And the question is will you have the ability in this season to experience reward, right? Or will you have the ability to experience consequence? Because the reality is while you might not experience the consequence in the moment, your story is directly connected to your response. And because it's directly connected to your response, whatever it is that you choose to do, you will have to deal with the consequences of those actions, maybe not in the moment, but you will deal with them later. Now, while God still performed the miracle that he called for Moses to perform, he ended up chastising him after the fact for the method of allowing the miracle to be transpired. And so because of this, what we have to do is, I know it's not in verse 7, and I know it's not there, but I have to, because I mean, next week it'll be different, right? But you have to be willing to ask God every single day. Okay, God, good morning. What we doing today? What are you perfecting in me today? What are you correcting in me today? What are you needing me to change? What are you needing me to fix? What it is that you're going to display through me today? Because whatever it is that you're going to do, I am ready, I am willing, I am available to serve, to honor, to put myself in a position to do everything that you're calling me to do. And I pray that I don't fail you today. I pray that I don't do anything that will be displeasing in your sight. Because the reality is we do things that ain't right all the time. We do things, myself included. We don't always make the right choices and the right decisions. But the more mature that I am becoming, the more I'm starting to understand that, God, I need you to infiltrate my thoughts with your understanding. I need you to come into where it is that I am, and I need you to help me to deal with me so that I don't get in your way when you're trying to use me for your glory. God, like move me out of your way. Like it's cool. It's one thing for you to move me out of my way, but move me out of your way so that I can do and perform the task in which you call for me to do, and I can be all that you call for me to be. Okay, so last point, and I'm done. Is this? Let's stop that and let's go back here. We're gonna deal with the scripture a little bit longer, and then we'll be done. All right. But yeah, so let's go back. Exodus chapter 17. Perfect. Okay, and he called the name of the place. Hold on. Yep, perfect. And he called the name of the place Massah. Massah meaning what? Massah is the place of Massah is the place of or Meribah is the place of strife and contention, and Massah is the place of testing where they tested Jehovah, right? And it says, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Now, I got to deal with this real quick and I'm gonna be through. The reality is what many people are not understanding is they're looking to see if God's hand is among them. When this question is being asked, you have to remember it's directly connected to God's provision, which is what? His hand. Now, when they say, is he among us or not? To question if God is among us, right? To question if he has the ability to arrive at us is such a theological conundrum. It's crazy. But the reality is it's almost as if they're questioning the existence of God totally. And to question his existence and to question his ability means that you really don't trust him. And to not trust somebody that has already proven that they're trustworthy, when they've done nothing wrong to betray your trust, when they've done nothing and said anything wrong that will come against what it is that you're trying to push them to come to a conclusion which they're coming to, what it literally means is I've allowed the opinions of others to drown out my previous experiences with God, and I've made them loud enough to where I'm willing to echo those same sentiments, even though I know differently for myself. And it's almost as if you're going to go with the crowd, right? You're going to go with the crowd because that's the loudest volume that's surrounding your internal propensity. And because it's the loudest thing in the room, it's what you're willing to agree with. But God does not want to develop cowards. He's trying to develop Christians. Right? He's trying to develop people who will be Christ-like, to where no matter what is being stated in the room and no matter how loud it is in comparison to your one singular voice, will you be bold enough to stand up in the midst of people who do not agree with what God is doing, who question his existence, who operate in a place and who operate with an understanding that they are going to be taken care of, that when they don't know and when they're not sure, they're going to get loud. But the question is, will you be bold enough to speak the instructions of the Father in the midst of boisterous doubt, of unbelief, of difficulty, in a time of testing and a time of dismay? And so what I'm encouraging you to do today is trust God to provide water out of the rock. All right, I'm going to pray us out. Father God, we thank you and we love you. We appreciate you. We adore you. We thank you for all that you continue to do. We love you and we honor you. And we just praise you for all that you have done for us, to us, around us, through us, and in all these different ways that you have kept us. God, we know that you are able. We know that you are capable. We know that you surround us with your love, with your grace, with your power. God, I pray that we will not be a people who will complain, but that we will be a people who will refrain from using our own language, but we would level up our language to listen to what it is that you have to say and speak your word in the midst of pressure, in the midst of a trial, in the midst of a test, in fiery trials, in fiery tests, and difficulties and issues and depression and circumstances, God. And I pray that you will free us and liberate our minds, that we might be able to execute your word. Don't allow the opinions of others to drown out your voice, to drown out the experiences that we've already had with you, because we know that you are capable. And while it is that we might have a new problem, God, you've given us old principles that will help us to sustain in a new season and in a new place. So we thank you for everyone who has tapped in this morning. I pray that you will give them a double portion, and I pray that the rest of their day will be successful and it will bring them everything that they would need. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. God bless you all. I love you all. I appreciate you all. Also, if you have a chance, I just started a Turning Point global page, right? And so if you can, please go ahead and like and do all those things. It'll be all different things. It'll be Turning Point merch on there. It'll also be some announcements for something that is being launched in October as well regarding Turning Point. So stay tuned for all of that. Please go and like that page. And I'm grateful for you all again. And you may receive an invitation from me today. So we're getting that page going and growing. And we're going to be building a community around Turning Point in the very, 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 very near future. So I appreciate you all again. Thank you for tuning in every week. And we will be back again at 8:30 a.m. next Sunday. God bless you all.